Thanks for joining our special live coverage of South Korea's 47th cabinet meeting of this year. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. In a moment, President Yoon Suk-yeol will preside over today's meeting and ask the National Assembly for a swift passage of bills that directly impact the livelihoods of people. Those include revisions to the Act on the Aggravated Punishment of Specific Economic Crimes, which is an effort to prevent jeonse fraud, as a rising number of young Koreans getting caught up in the rental deposit scams has spurred national anger. Now, he is also set to explain plans for his 4-day trip to San Francisco to attend the APEC summit this week. Now, that is the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. The president is expected to mingle with leaders of major countries, including U.S. President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. There is also a possibility of a sit-down between President Yoon and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. During the meeting, he will also take the opportunity to encourage young South Koreans who are taking the college entrance exam known as 수능 here in South Korea, which is taking place on Thursday. We are still waiting for South Korea's 47th cabinet meeting to take place. In a moment, President Yoon will be there to preside today's meeting. Now, today, he will take today's meeting as an opportunity to ask the National Assembly for a swift passage of bills that directly impact the livelihoods of the people. He will also take the upcoming meeting to really cheer up young South Koreans who are taking the college entrance exam known as 수능 here in South Korea. The meeting has just begun. We'll come back right afterwards.
저는 탁상 행정이 아닌
At the last cabinet meeting, I called for a living policy that reflects the voices of the people on the ground rather than just desk administration. On the 1st of November, at a town hall meeting that was held at Sinchon, I heard vivid stories from various citizens about the difficulties they face in their everyday lives, including self-employed people. And last week, at Daegu Chilseong Market, I heard from merchants who were struggling with the local economic downturn. And on Thursday, we heard the pain and cries of victims of illegal private financing. After hearing such desperate voices of the people directly, I became determined to resolve the problem more proactively and swiftly. The President's office and each ministry also visited 292 people's livelihood sites where small business owners, self-employed, field workers, and parents were present. After the pandemic, parents of young children complained that when the pandemic ended and non-face-to-face medical treatment was banned, they were forced to take annual leave to rush to the hospital at the slightest sign of any illness and spent days and evenings visiting night hospitals and in a long queue, as well as emergency rooms. And they were very frustrated. During the pandemic, non-face-to-face medical treatment was allowed, so it was quite a quick process to really have a consultation with the doctor, but that was changed. And also the fish market vendors who have been through the contaminated water scare once said, I am losing sleep because I think the election season is coming up and it will be all very noisy once again. And I'll also ask the government to be more responsive to this matter. The restaurant industry said, you won't know how difficult it is to find people to work for you unless you come and work, and requested that foreign laborers could be introduced to the service and restaurant industry as well. Well, as the cabinet members have felt, it's one thing to look at numbers and statistics and know them, and it's quite another to know
직원을 통해서
professionally
보고받고
that you've
들어서
heard from
전문으로 아는
your
것과
subordinates
직접
or from the media,
현장에서
and it's quite another to
만나고
see and meet
보고
and hear
듣고
and actually
느끼는 것은
feel the people
완전히 다른
on
얘기입니다.
the ground.
저와 우리
My
정부는
government and myself will get
더
closer
가까이
to the
다가갈
people.
것입니다. 정부는
The
현장의
government
목소리를
is
바탕으로
focusing
민생
its
문제
efforts
해결과
on solving
정책
people's
추진에
livelihood problems
더욱
and promoting
힘을
policies
쏟아주기를
based on the
당부드립니다.
voices from the field.
최근 어려워진
And
소상공인과
To ease the burden on small business owners and self-employed who are recently faced with predicaments, we have decided to waive the return of disaster assistance payments that were paid in advance during the COVID-19 period. And despite the inevitable partial increase in electricity rates, we decided to reduce the burden on ordinary people by freezing rates for residential electricity and electricity used by small and medium-sized businesses and small business owners. Also, a plan to ease the burden of household communication costs was also announced, such as establishment of the lowest 5G rate plan in the 30,000 won range, encouraging the launch of mid to low-priced handsets and etc. And to relieve inconveniences during commuting, I decided the GTX-A Dongtan station, that is the departing station, and we decided to open this section early next year, as early as possible, and also promoting the introduction of a plan which can reimburse up to 20% of public transportation costs and up to 53% for vulnerable groups, that is called K-Pass. To ensure that children spend a warm winter, we decided to add children's centers and care centers to the list of those eligible for heating fee or bill reduction. To stabilize supply and demand during the Kimjang season, we will supply 21,000 tons of ingredients. In particular, starting last week, short selling was temporarily banned to prevent illegal market disruptions and protect our stock market and 14 million individual investors. And I do understand that some people are concerned that the ban will make it more difficult for Korean stocks to be included in the MSCI developed index. However, unlike the US, Korea's stock market is highly volatile and has a high proportion of individual investors. Neglecting the problem of illegal short selling any further will only cause significant losses to individual investors, but also it may lead to a decline in trust in the Korean securities market and cause of investors' exodus. Until we have a fundamental reforms to prevent such further harm, we will ban the short selling. I believe that this is the path that will have a positive impact on our securities market and stock market competitiveness in the long run. I hope that the FSC and FSS will prepare a proper solution to correct this tilted playing field in our market and protect individual investors. It's important to create policies for the people's livelihoods, but also it's very important that the policies are properly implemented and it is palpable by the people. Last October, with the implementation of delivery price indexing system, conditions were created for small and medium-sized businesses to receive delivery payment at a correct or proper price. However, the financial situation and the SME business owners, which has recently become difficult due to the aftermath of high interest rates, is not improving easily. To resolve the financial difficulties of these enterprises that depend on large and medium-sized companies for 75% of their sales, we ask the government to actively persuade all the companies to participate in this system, in which 374 companies are currently participating. Moreover,
자금 예치 이익이 커짐에 따라
taking into
미불이
the
늘어난다는
consideration the
현장의
voices
목소리를
from the
듣고
field that
있습니다.
unpaid delivery payments are
관계
increasing
부처들은
as the profits
협력해서
from depositing funds
납품 대금 지급이
increase due to high
지연되지
interest
않도록
rates. We ask
현장
the relevant
감독에
ministries
만전을 기해 주시기
to
바랍니다.
cooperate and monitor the
국민의
fields
어려움에
and supervise
응답하고
the fields
실질적인 도움을 드리기 위해서는
in order to respond to the
민생과
difficulties faced by the
직결된
people
법안 처리에
and provide
속도를
practical help
내주시기를
to them. I urge the National
당부드립니다.
Assembly to speed
지난
up
3월
the process
노후
of bills
계획도시 정비를
directly
위한
related to the people.
특별법이 발의되었지만
Last March, the
아직
Special Act
상임위
for
문턱을
maintenance
넘지
of
못하고
aging
있습니다.
planned cities was
과거
proposed.
인구
However,
분산을
it is
위해
not yet
조성되었던
passed.
신도시들이
As new cities that were
노후화되면서
built in the past
주민들의
to
안전과
disperse the
층간소음,
population are
주차
aging,
시비까지
problems
문제가
with resident
지속되고
safety and
있습니다.
noise between
저는
floors and parking
일기 신도시
problems
특별법
persist.
개정을
I
국민께
promise the
약속드린 바
people
있습니다.
that the first
그리고 우리
new city
정부의 국정
special
과제로
law will be enacted
선정해서
and have promoted it
추진해 왔습니다.
by selecting it as a national
정부의 기본
task.
방침과 각 도시별,
The
각
government's
신도시별
basic
기본
policy
계획을 동시에 수립하는
and
투트랙 전략으로
a
기간을 대폭
basic plan
단축하고
for each
내년까지
new
마스터
city
플랜을
should be
수립하기 위해
run
지자체들과도
simultaneously on a
소통해
two-track
왔습니다.
strategy and have also
신속하고
communicated
질서
with
있게
local governments to
대규모 단지를
establish a
정비하고
master plan by
지금도
next year.
30년 전에 머물러 있는
There are
노후
limits to
도시를
the existing legal
미래
system
도시로
alone
전환하기
to
위해서는
quickly and orderly
기존의 법
reorganize
체계만으로는
these
한계가
large and
있습니다.
outdated complexes.
단순히 집을 다시 짓는
The enactment
것뿐만이
of
아니라
special law
주거
is
환경
absolutely
개선,
necessary to
그리고
support not only
이주 수요의 관리까지
rebuilding homes
뒷받침될
but
수
also
있도록
improving residential
특별법의
environments and
제정이
managing
반드시
migration
필요합니다.
demand to
수도권뿐
these new
아니라
cities.
지방 거점 신도시 등 전국의
And
많은
not only in the
국민들께서
metropolitan area, but
법
also
애타게
in the
기다리고
regional new
계십니다.
cities, there are many people
이번이
across the
아니면
country who are
다음
waiting
국회에서
for the law to be
처음부터 다시
enacted.
시작해야 한다는 우려의
We will have to
목소리가
start
아주 큽니다.
again from scratch in the next National
어제
Assembly
야당도
if we do not
특별법
pass it
제정에
for this
동의하신
time.
만큼
And
국민의
although it was
삶과
late
직결된
yesterday
법안이
night, the opposition
연내에
party
꼭
also agreed to
통과될 수
enact a
있도록
special law.
국회에
So
적극적인
I ask for the
논의를
active discussions
부탁드리겠습니다.
in the National Assembly to ensure
지역
that this
경제와
bill is
지역
passed
상권의
within this year.
어려움도 더 이상 외면할
We can
수
no
없습니다.
longer
생산 인구 감소에
be
청년 인구의 수도권 유출까지 더해지면서
we can no longer
지역
ignore the difficulties of the
소상공인들의
local economy
경영
and the
악화와
local
지역
commercial
경제
districts.
본도화가
As the working
심화되고
age
있습니다.
population declines and the
지역
youth
상권을
populations are flowing out of
재건하여
metropolitan
사람이
area,
찾아오는
the management
특색
of
있는
local
공간으로
small business
발전시켜
owners
나가는 것이
and
시급합니다.
the hollowing out of the local economy are
창의적인
worsening.
발전
It is
전략을
urgent
기획하고
to rebuild the
지역
local
정부가
commercial district
지역
and develop
상권
it into a
발전
unique
기금으로
space where
이를
people
뒷받침할 수
are
있도록
attracted.
지역
We ask you to
상권법
pay
개정에
special attention to the
각별한
revision of the
관심을
Local Commerce
당부드립니다.
Act so that the private sector can plan creative development strategies.
우리 정부가
Our
민간과
government,
기업 중심의
together with the private
시장
sector
경제
and businesses,
활성화를
is
추진하고
promoting
제가 해외
the
시장 개척과
revitalization of
외교에
a market
적극 나서는
economy.
것은 다름이
And my
아니고
efforts to
바로
pioneer
미래
overseas
세대인
markets
청년들에게
and engage
양질의
in sales
일자리를 마련해
diplomacy
주기 위한 것입니다.
are all aimed at providing
그
quality
효과가
jobs for the
제대로
young
나타나기
people who
위한
are our future
전제
generation.
조건이 바로
The
채용
prerequisite for
과정의
this is to be
공정성과
effective.
투명성입니다. 이제 막 사회에
For this to be
진출하려는
effective is fairness and
청년들이
transparency
이 나라의
in
미래에
the
대해
hiring process.
좌절하지
It
않도록
is necessary to
고용세에서
quickly implement
채용
the
갑질을
Fair
근절하기
Recruitment
위한
Recruitment
공정채용법에
Act to eradicate
신속한 시행이
the employment
필요합니다.
of and abuse of power in hiring
꿈과 희망을
so
가질
that
수
the young
있도록
people
입법에
can have their
속도를
dreams and hopes.
내주시기를
So we
부탁드립니다.
ask you to
어제
speed up the
한국노총이
legislation in this regard.
경제사회노동위원회
Yesterday, the Federation of
사회적 대화 복귀
Korean Trade
입장을
Unions
밝혔습니다.
announced its position to return
환영합니다.
the social dialogue
최근
at
우리
the Economic,
경제는
Social and Labor
대외적인
Committee.
어려운
I
여건,
welcome this.
고물가
Recently,
고금리로
our economy
국민들의
is facing
어려움이
great
매우
difficulties
크고
for the
또
people due to
저출산
high inflation
고령화와
and high
노동시장
interest
이중
rates.
구조 등
And
누적된
also the low birth
구조적
rate,
문제가
aging
겹쳐
population, and dual
지속적인 성장이
labor market structure
위협받고 있는
is
상황입니다.
exacerbating this situation.
노사정이
Nevertheless,
머리를
if
맞대고
labor and
대화한다면
management and government
어떠한
put their heads
어려움도
together and
극복할
muster
수
their
있을
strengths,
것입니다.
any difficulties can be
노사는
overcome.
법치의
Labor and
토대
management
위에서
must communicate
대화하고
and collaborate
협력해야
on the
합니다.
basis of the rule of law. The
공정한
government
중재자로서
will faithfully
가교
fulfill
역할을
its role
충실히
as the
수행해
fair
나가겠습니다.
mediator.
이틀 뒤에 내년도
2 days
대수학능력
later,
시험이
next
치러집니다.
year's 수능
수험생
will
여러분은
be held.
지금까지 준비해
I
오신
hope that all the
역량을
test takers of this year can
최대한
confidently
발휘하시기
demonstrate
바랍니다.
their capabilities they have
비록 제가
prepared for so
해외에
long.
있더라도 전국의
I will
수험생
be out of the
여러분을
country, but
실컷
I will do my best to
응원하겠습니다.
support all the test takers across the
저는
country.
샌프란시스코에서 열리는
I
APEC
plan to
정상회의
leave for the
참석을
United
위해
States tomorrow to
내일
attend
미국으로
the APEC
출국할
summit
예정입니다.
that is held in San
이번 APEC
Francisco.
정상회의는
At this APEC
세계의
summit,
지정학적 불안전성과
the global complex
지정학적
crisis where
변동이
geopolitical
교차하는
instability
글로벌
and
복합 위기 속에서
geoeconomic changes
열립니다.
are
저는 세계
happening.
GDP의
It is held amidst all
60% 이상을
this.
차지하는
And at this
회원국의
meeting,
정상들이
where the leaders of member
한데
countries that
모이는
account
이번
for more than
회의에서
60% of the world's
공급망
GDP will
무역,
gather and we
투자
will
확대와
discuss
같이
cooperation
우리
measures that can
경제에
substantially
실질적으로
benefit our
보탬이 되는
economy,
협력
such as
방안을
supply
논의할
chain
것입니다.
diversification and
그리고
trade and
다음 주
investment expansion.
영국
And
국빈
next
방문
week,
계기에는
on
정상간 합의
my
문서인
visit
환영
to state
어코드를
visit to the
채택하고
UK, we will
양국 관계의
adopt the
미래지향적 파트너십을
Korea-UK
가층적으로
accord,
확장시켜
an
나갈
agreement
것입니다.
between the two leaders, and
영국은
expand the future-oriented
유럽의
partnership between the two countries.
제2위의 경제 대국임에도 불구하고
Although the UK is
우리나라와의
Europe's
무역
second
규모는
largest economy, the trade
독일,
volume with Korea
이탈리아와의
is
무역
less
규모에
than that
미치지
of Korea,
못합니다.
Germany, and
이번
Korea,
영국
Italy.
국빈 방문은 우리 기업의
The state visit this time to the UK will serve as an opportunity to take economic cooperation between our two countries to the next level and focus on the expansion of Korean companies' high-tech industrial supply chains and scientific technological cooperation.
영국에 이어서
Following the
2030년
visit to the
엑스포
UK,
투표를
I
수일
will
앞두고
be visiting France just a few days before the vote for the 2030 World Expo.
2030년 엑스포
I
최종
will
투표가
meet
이루어질
with
파리에서 각국
the
BIE
BIE
대표들을 직접
representatives
만나
from each
부산 엑스포
country
유치를 위한
in person
막판
in Paris,
총력전을
where the final
펼칠
vote for the 2030
관계
World Expo will be
부처에서는
held and make
제순방
last-minute
기간 동안
efforts and sales
민생
pitch.
현안을
We ask for the relevant
실시간으로
ministries
챙기는데
to make sure that they take
만전기해
efforts to
주시기를
take care of the
당부드립니다.
public's livelihood issues during my visit.
지금
Thank you.
이 시간 의안 심의는 비공개로 진행됩니다. 언론인 여러분.
That was the 47th cabinet meeting of this year, where President Yoon Suk-yeol presided and asked the National Assembly for a swift passage of bills that directly impact the livelihoods of the people. If you missed the highlights, you can still catch the highlights at our upcoming newscast at 12 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.